much bigger tricks every day on this programme.
He does all his own stunts,
Yeah, I do,
Jonathan,
exactly. And, let's talk about all that now. Sally and I are joined by Bundeep Singh Rangar from the company IndusView. Let's start then with this story. Front page of the Financial Times. Defence groups urge UK-France tie-up on unmanned aircraft, suggesting actually there could be something in this for the defence industry, this closer Anglo-French defence cooperation.
I guess it comes down to one thing, right? Cost, cost, cost. We know that both sides, Britain and France, are looking at drones because they're the cost-effective way and the people-saving way of infiltrating enemy territory. But the reality is the cost of R&D is surged, the cost of development surged. And internationally, the arms export market, I go to India a lot, where you see a lot of Israeli companies because they export, they're the biggest market, as well. Russian and soon Chinese. So if you want to play in the international setting, your cost base has to be. France is this famous fighter they put out. They can't sell them because they're too expensive. So this is, I think, a step in that direction, saying let's manage our costs. And Britain and France have talked about cooperation the past 12 years ago. Chirac with Blair did that, didn't get very far. Maybe this time they'll actually find a different
take on the Americans, though, isn't it? I mean, the American defence industry is so strong.
And frankly, that's the big fear. If they don't have a replacement for the Joint Strike Eurofighter, Typhoon, what have you, then the next plane in Europe will be an American one.
In terms of companies, though, that might get a piece of the action or involved, there's already a lot of collaboration and a lot of working going on between French and British defence companies anyway, aren't there, at many levels?
Yeah, this Dassault for one, BAE. So you've got a lot of cooperation. And also remember the aircraft carrier deal. I think by 2020, France and Britain will have a joint cooperation on aircraft, so on aircraft carriers, that is. So this is better for the European defence industry.
History isn't really on the European defence industry side, is it? You know, if we look back, for example, you mentioned the Eurofighter. Economically, that's a bit of a disaster. You know, it was delivered over budget, late, and that's potentially because all these countries that are involved are always fiddling. They always want one minor change. Whereas the Americans, well, it's one American military ordering aircraft. They know what they want. Okay, some projects are delivered late, but on the whole, it's not lots of governments fiddling when it comes to the American side.
I guess one of the best examples of a successful European cooperation is Airbus. That's often pointed to as an example where different countries, disparate regimes, have created a very successful contender to Boeing. So maybe that's the model, not the joint strike.
Well, let's hope so.
All right, well, let's have a look at what the Chinese are up to. Apparently, they're
Place your
gambling
bets,
and they're hoping on the black table more than stocks, the property markets. I mean, let's be clear, this does coincide with a big national holiday in China, this report. So in a way, it's a holiday season. People are getting out and having fun. But what do you make of this? Is this a worrying trend?
Well, I mean, I live in Hong Kong, and I know the kind of penchant that the Chinese have for gambling. And I guess there's a big change here. Until 2006, I guess, the Stanley Ho SGM Holdings had a monopoly, and that was broken. So now you have 6 operators, 2 of them are American-backed. SGM is still 30% of the market. And the Chinese Golden Week that they had, you look at the appreciation of the Chinese currency, no swine flu, generally a healthy economy out there. So you've got just a
all
good
the worries
trend.
are out of the way.
Absolutely.
But it's good news for Macau, isn't it? Because at one point, a few years ago, at the height of the financial crisis, there's a real concern because Macau was just this enormous industrial, revolution happening. Skyscrapers going up, casinos emerging, and the worry was there wasn't going to be the money there to keep it going, that people would not be there gambling. But actually, it looks like they are.
It's the world's biggest casino area, so the past 4 years now.
Superseded Las Vegas?
It's Las Vegas 4 years ago.
It says here that casino's statistical advantage on the game of Baccarat means it's expected to win about 2.85% of all VIP gambling chips wagered. But high rollers are typically given a rebate whether they win or lose. So in other words, they've got an incentive to put their money in gambling because they get some money back anyway.
Is that your little thought for the day, John?
It is my thought for the day, actually, yes.
I'm sure there'll be some tweets.
Let's move on to the International Herald Tribune and, gambling on election victories in a way. This is about stealth financing and how much money has been put into this midterm election campaign on both sides by both the Democrats and Republicans. Billions of dollars have been spent this time round.
Well, one of the big developments that happened earlier this year was a case between Citizens United and the Federal Election Commission, which basically stipulated that companies and unions could not back independent political candidates, but private funding was allowed. So they said that was a basic it didn't violate the First Amendment to have individual groups back campaigns, which may even be negative rather than supportive of one candidate. It could be negative against somebody else. So there's a groundswell of this whole stealth campaign where billions of dollars could be spent, not by any corporate or union, but by private people. And remember, in the last election, 1.8 million people gave about $200 each. So there's a whole kind of crowdfunding.
I mean, I was hearing actually just the other day that apparently one of the candidates from the Tea Party movement in Delaware has just had a 30-minute campaign commercial on television paid for by a donor.
Amazing.
I mean,
Not the
to be
Boston
honest,
Tea
though,
Party.
with every election in the US, whether it's midterm, whether it's general, whatever, there's always this story, isn't there? The person who has the most funding, the person who has the most donations, will probably run the most successful campaign.
Yeah,
and is it just about the money?
Well, at the heart of it is, can money buy votes, right? Not directly, but can you influence the voters enough that by successful campaigning, and Obama, to his credit, had the most successful fundraising and arguably the most successful campaign delivered out of Israel. So there's certainly proof.
And it is interesting, the Democrats have spent an absolute fortune this time, not just the Republicans, and yet still the voters are very angry because this is, after all, an election about the economy, isn't it?
Absolutely. I guess the House of Representatives is looking like it'll be Republican this time, given the slightly anti-Obama sentiment out there.
Now, Bundeep, quickly, Tom Cruise, crazy man or a master of his skills?
He looks pretty fit, doesn't he, actually?
He does look pretty fit, but it's
a very small photograph.
It's a great poster for the Dubai brand, isn't it? The world's tallest tower, 2,700 feet.
A tiny little man climbing it. Hard to see him, really.
Mission impossible, isn't it?
I think it's fantastic publicity, and of course we're only adding to it. But thank you very much indeed for joining us. And that is it from the two of us. Stay with us, there's a lot more still to come right here on the BBC.
Take care, bye-bye.